When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez walked into a Senate hearing expecting a televised victory, she had no idea J.D. Vance was about to systematically dismantle her entire political narrative. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was still pointing her finger directly at the Vice President of the United States when J.D. Vance delivered the sentence that shattered the room. "Congresswoman, you just testified falsely under oath, and I am going to prove it in the next 40 minutes. Senator Bernie Sanders, sitting directly behind her, did not move a single muscle. Senator Elizabeth Warren looked down silently at the table. Representative Jasmine Crockett's mouth opened slightly and then closed again. On the Republican side of the dais, Senator Josh Hawley leaned forward for the very first time in 3 hours. Senator Tim Scott set down his pen very carefully. He set it down the way a man sets down a glass of water when he absolutely does not want to spill it. Senator Tom Cotton simply folded his hands. Somewhere up in the press gallery, a young reporter from the Associated Press frantically whispered into her phone, "Get the desk now. Something is happening in Dirksen 538. If you have been waiting, truly waiting, for the day somebody finally held Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accountable to her own words, hit that like button right now, because it is about to happen live, under oath, on C-SPAN, in the United States Senate. And nobody in that room is ready for what comes next." 3 hours earlier, Senate Dirksen Room 538 had been standard Washington theater. Vice President J.D. Vance had gavelled in the hearing at 10:00 inches the morning. The subject was the national housing crisis. The committee was the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Democrats had invited Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as a witness to attack the administration's working family housing policy. AOC had walked into that room believing 3 things. First, that J.D. Vance was a Yale-educated venture capitalist who couldn't name a single street in the Bronx. Second, that Bernie Sanders, sitting right behind her in the gallery reserved for invited House members, would follow her lead the way he had followed it for 7 years. Third, that the C-SPAN cameras were her stage. She was wrong about all 3. For the first 2 hours, the hearing had gone exactly the way she had expected. She had attacked Trump, she had attacked Republicans, she had called the administration's working family tax plan economic devastation against the poor. She had called J.D. Vance, to his face, a betrayer to the hollows he pretended to love. She had accused the Republican Party of staging a systemic devastation of the working class. Vance had not interrupted her once. He had sat very still at the chairman's position, writing slowly on a yellow legal pad. He had not looked angry. He had not looked offended. He had looked, more than anything, like a Marine taking notes. At 12:47 p.m., Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez finished her opening statement. She looked across the dais at the Vice President and said, with the small, confident smile that had carried her through 7 years of cable news, "I yield my remaining time, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to your questions." J.D. Vance looked up from his legal pad. "Congresswoman," he said, "I have 47 questions. We are going to start with number 1. Question 1. Congresswoman, you just testified under oath that the Republican housing plan will, quote, displace 2 million working families from their homes. Yes or no? Is that what you said?" AOC leaned into her microphone. "That is exactly what I said, Mr. Chairman. And the data supports, thank you. I am going to hold you to those words. Question 2. She blinked. She had expected a debate. This did not feel like a debate. This felt like something else entirely. Question 2. In March of this year, you posted on social media that, and I am quoting you word for word, no elected official should ever take corporate money and claim to represent working people. Did you write those words, Congresswoman? Yes, I did. Do you still stand by them? Absolutely. Every day. Thank you. Question 3. In 2018, your congressional campaign was supported by two political action committees, the Brand New Congress PAC and the Justice Democrats PAC. Both of those PACs were founded by your then Chief of Staff, Saikat Chakrabarti. You served on the board of Justice Democrats from December 2017 until June 2018. Is all of that correct? She paused for the first time that morning. She paused before answering, yes. Question 4. During that same period, the National Legal and Policy Center filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission, alleging that approximately $885,000 was transferred from those two PACs into two limited liability companies that your Chief of Staff personally owned. The companies were named Brand New Campaign LLC and Brand New Congress LLC. The transfers were labeled Strategic Consulting. The Federal Election Commission opened an official case. The case file was assigned a number. That case is a matter of public record. Congresswoman, were you aware of those transfers while you sat on the board of Justice Democrats? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took a sip of water. Her hand was steady. Her voice was not. Mr. Chairman, that complaint was politically motivated, and, Congresswoman, Vance did not raise his voice. He did not even lean forward. Yes or no? Were you aware? The silence in Dirksen 538 lasted 4 seconds. In a televised Senate hearing, 4 seconds is an absolute eternity. I was not aware of the specific accounting. Thank you. Question 5. If a Republican congressman had sat on the board of a political action committee that funneled $885,000 to a Chief of Staff's private limited liability companies, would you, by your own standard from March of this year, call that Republican a representative of working people or a representative of corporate money? Silence. Mr. Chairman, this is a baseless claim. That complaint was, Congresswoman, the case file at the FEC is open. I have the case number. Would you like me to read it into the official hearing record right now? She did not answer. On the Democratic side of the dais, Senator Elizabeth Warren picked up her pen. She wrote something on her legal pad. She did not pass the note to anyone. She did not show it to her staff. She simply wrote it, and then she put the pen down. And then she folded her hands the way a woman folds her hands when she has decided to stop defending something. On the Republican side, Senator Josh Hawley had the expression of a man watching a prosecution that he did not need to conduct himself. Vice President Vance looked down at his legal pad. Congresswoman, you wrote the rule, not me. I am just reading it back to you. He turned the page. 42 more questions. Let's go to question 6. Question 6. You testified this morning under oath that, quote, the greatest enemy of the American worker is the billionaire class that ships jobs overseas. Yes or no? Are those your words? Those are my words, and I stand by them. Question 7. In February 2019, you publicly celebrated the cancellation of Amazon's HQ2 headquarters in Long Island City, Queens. That headquarters would have created approximately 25,000 jobs in your own congressional district. The average salary was projected at $150,000 per year. Is that correct? The Amazon deal was a corporate welfare scheme that would have, yes or no, Congresswoman? Yes, I celebrated it. Because I was right. Vance turned a page. He did not look up. Your own Democratic governor, Andrew Cuomo, not a Republican, Congresswoman, called your celebration of that cancellation, quote, the greatest tragedy I have seen since I have been in government. Did Governor Cuomo say those words? Governor Cuomo and I had political differences. That is not what I asked. I asked if he said those words. Yes. Vance finally looked up. And then he did something that nobody in that room had expected him to do. He turned his head slightly to the left, to the gallery, to where the invited House members were seated, to where, in the second row, wearing a dark gray suit and the expression of a man who had been a United States Senator since 2007, sat Bernard Sanders of Vermont. Senator Sanders, since you are in this room today as a guest, and since you have spent the last 6 months campaigning alongside Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez on what the two of you called the Fight the Oligarchy Tour, I would like to ask you one question directly, if the chair may. Bernie Sanders looked up slowly. Every camera in Dirksen 538 turned toward him at the exact same time. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, C-SPAN, the split-screen feeds all snapped right to his face. Senator Sanders, Vance said, you have spent 40 years in this building fighting for the American worker. I have read some of your speeches. I disagree with many of them, but I respect the consistency of them. So I am asking you, as a fellow elected official, do you believe that preventing $25,000, $150,000 a year jobs from coming to Queens fights the oligarchy? Or do you believe in your heart that it hurt the working class of that borough? Bernie Sanders was 73 years old. He had been asked 10,000 questions on live television. He had never ducked a single one. He ducked this one. Mr. Vice President, Sanders said in the Brooklyn accent that had carried him through 2 presidential campaigns. I am here today as a courtesy, not as a witness. I would prefer not to answer a hypothetical. The silence in Dirksen 538 was the loudest sound that had been heard in that building in a month. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez turned her head 3 inches to the right. Just 3 inches. Just far enough to see out of the corner of her eye that Bernie Sanders was not looking at her. She understood, in that 3-inch turn of her head, that she was entirely alone. Vance waited 2 more seconds. Then he turned back to her. Thank you, Senator. I respect your decision. Question 8. Congresswoman, the $12 billion in lost economic activity from the Amazon cancellation, how many of those 25,000 jobs have you personally replaced in your district since 2019? That is not how congressional districts work, Mr. Chairman. 0. The answer is 0. I checked the Bureau of Labor Statistics this morning at 6:45 a.m. Net private sector job creation in New York. S14th Congressional District from January 2019 to the most recent quarterly report is negative 4,200. You did not just prevent 25,000 new jobs, Congresswoman. You oversaw the loss of 4,200 more on top of that. He turned another page. That is 29,200 jobs by your own celebrated policy position that never came to the people you were elected to represent. Question 9. Would you like to revise your earlier statement that the billionaire class is the greatest enemy of the American worker? Or do you want it to stand on the record? AOC's water glass was at her lips. She set it down without drinking. I stand by my statement. Thank you. At the back of the room, a C-SPAN producer leaned over to her director and whispered a single sentence. We are not cutting away from this. I don't care what the schedule says. In the Democratic cloakroom 1 floor up, 3 senators who had been scrolling their phones were now standing perfectly still in front of the television mounted to the wall. One of them was Senator Chuck Schumer. Another was Senator Dick Durbin. The third had stopped scrolling on a text message halfway through a word. In the CNN studio in Manhattan, the executive producer of the network's live daytime coverage made a decision that would be studied in journalism schools for years afterward. She said out loud to her entire control room, "Clear the schedule. We are staying on this hearing until it ends. I don't care if it runs through prime time. Nobody cuts away. Nobody." In a retirement home in North Charleston, South Carolina. An 81-year-old woman named Frances Scott, mother of Senator Tim Scott, turned the volume on her television up 2 notches and did not take her eyes off the screen. Question 16. Congresswoman. Vance turned to a new section of his legal pad. This section was tabbed with a yellow post-it note. On July 25, 2025, the Bipartisan House Committee on Ethics issued Report 119 to 219. The report was signed by both Democratic and Republican members. It was 26 pages long. I read it on my flight to Washington last night. I would like to read you what it found. May I? She did not answer. The report found, and I am quoting directly from page 14, that you, quote, failed to fully comply with the gift rule by impermissibly accepting a gift of free admission to the 2021 Met Gala for your partner and by failing to pay full fair market value for some of the items worn to the event. Did the Bipartisan House Ethics Committee make that finding, Congresswoman? Yes or no? That report? Yes or no? Did the committee, signed by both parties, make that finding? Yes. Thank you. Question 17. The ticket to that event was $35,000 per person. The dress you wore on the red carpet retailed for approximately $18,000. The hair and makeup service cost $477.73. The committee found that the designer reduced the rental price of your dress from $1,300 to $300 after conversations with your campaign staff. Are all of those numbers accurate? They are in the report. Question 18. The committee also found that your hair and makeup provider, a small business owner in New York City, was not paid in full until February 23, 2022. That is approximately 5 months after the event. The committee described the vendors as being, quote, overly reliant on the Congresswoman's staff to ensure compliance with the gift rule. Did that happen, Congresswoman? My staff handled the payments, and I take responsibility. Congresswoman, yes or no? Did a working-class hairdresser in New York City wait 5 months to be paid $477 by a United States Congresswoman who wore a dress that said, "Tax the Rich," on the back of it? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lowered her eyes. Yes. Vance did not move. The median monthly rent in Hunts Point in the Bronx, in your congressional district, Congresswoman, is approximately $1,390. The penalty the House Ethics Committee ordered you to pay for the Met Gala violations was $2,733, plus a $250 donation for your partner's meal. Total, $2,983. That is roughly 2 months of your own constituents' rent. Congresswoman, your penalty for wearing a tax-the-rich dress at a $35,000 a plate party. 2 months of their rent. Question 19. Who, on that night in September 2021, was the rich? Somewhere in the front row of the press gallery, a reporter from the Washington Post. A reporter who had personally written 6 positive profiles of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez between 2019 and 2023, set her pen down on her notebook and did not pick it back up. And then something happened that nobody in Dirksen 538, not even Vice President Vance, had expected. A senator on the Democratic side of the dais leaned into his microphone without being called on. He was wearing, as he had worn to every Senate session for the past 2 years, a black hoodie and gym shorts. His name was John Fetterman. He represented the state of Pennsylvania. He had been, for most of his political career, the exact kind of Democrat that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had championed, a working-class, tattooed, unapologetic progressive from the steel towns of western Pennsylvania. But in the last 2 years, John Fetterman had become something else. He had become the most publicly critical Democrat of the progressive wing of his own party. He had become, according to some of his colleagues, a turncoat. According to others, the only honest Democrat left in Washington. He leaned into his microphone. "Mr. Chairman, can I get 30 seconds? Vance looked at him for exactly 1 second. Then he nodded once. "Senator Fetterman has the floor." Fetterman's voice was the flat Western Pennsylvania voice that had won him a Senate seat by running as a blue-collar Democrat. It did not sound like a politician's voice. It never had. "I am not going to pretend I agree with Vice President Vance on most things. I don't. I voted against most of his party's bills, and I am going to keep voting against them. But I am also not going to sit in this room and pretend I did not just hear what I just heard. My constituents in Braddock, Pennsylvania, make on average about $41,000 a year. A 5-month delay on a $477 invoice would put one of them into collections. It would wreck their credit. It would mean their kids can't get braces. It would mean real damage to a real family. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, with respect, and I mean that, you do not get to wear Tax the Rich on a dress at a $35,000 a plate party and also stiff a hairdresser for 5 months. You have to pick one. You have to. I have picked mine. My party. My party needs to pick its. John Fetterman leaned back. He did not look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He looked at the cameras. He looked at the American people. Elizabeth Warren closed her eyes for 3 full seconds. Raphael Warnock, the Baptist pastor from Atlanta, who had once preached from Martin Luther King Jr., its pulpit, wrote something on his legal pad that the C-SPAN zoom lens would later reveal to anyone who paused the footage and squinted. It looked very much like the single word, Amen. Bernie Sanders did not move. In living rooms across America, in that exact moment, something shifted. In a double-wide trailer in Athens, Ohio, a 8-year-old retired coal miner named Dale put his coffee cup down on the table next to his recliner. He had voted for Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary. He had voted for Donald Trump in the general election. He had not known how to feel about any of it for 9 years. He knew now, in a kitchen in Braddock, Pennsylvania, the very town Fetterman had just named, a 2-year-old single mother named Crystal, who had been doing dishes during the hearing, stopped doing them. She picked up her phone. She opened a group text with her 3 sisters. She typed 4 words. "Are you watching this?" In a barber shop in Middletown, Ohio, the town where J.D. Vance had grown up, an old barber named Earl, who had cut Jimmy Vance's hair when Jimmy was 7 years old, paused the clippers mid-cut and said to nobody in particular, "Well, I'll be absolutely astounded. The boy is doing it." 25 questions remaining. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was not a small person. She had not become the youngest woman ever elected to the United States Congress by collapsing when things got hard. She had faced hecklers. She had faced severe physical threats. She had faced Marjorie Taylor Greene screaming at her on the Capitol steps, and she had not flinched. She took a breath. She reached for her water. She set it back down. She leaned into her microphone with both hands. "Mr. Chairman, you have asked me 15 questions. I am going to ask you 1. The room stilled. You wrote a book in 2016 called Hillbilly Elegy. In that book, you described your grandmother, your mother, and your community in Middletown, Ohio, as suffering from what you called a cultural crisis. You argued that the decline of the white working class in Appalachia was not primarily about economics. It was about culture, personal responsibility, family breakdown. Those were your words, Mr. Vance, not mine. Then, in 2021, you took approximately $15 million in campaign support from a Silicon Valley billionaire named Peter Thiel to run for the United States Senate in Ohio. You worked at Mithril Capital, a venture capital firm co-founded by Mr. Thiel. You founded Naria Capital in Cincinnati, where much of your seed funding also came from Mr. Thiel. Your most recent public financial disclosure places your personal net worth at approximately $11.4 million. Mr. Vice President, you started a nonprofit called Our Ohio Renewal, which was supposed to combat the severe health crisis in your home state. NPR reported NPR. Mr. Chairman, not Fox News, not OAN, not Breitbart, that your nonprofit spent more money on management consultants and public relations than it did on actual recovery services in Ohio. And then it quietly closed. That reporting is a matter of public record. Your grandmother, the woman you wrote the book about, passed away in 2005, owing money to a pharmacy in Middletown, Ohio, for her own insulin. And then, 11 years later, you sold her story to HarperCollins, and you sold the movie rights to Ron Howard, and Glenn Close was nominated for a Golden Globe playing her. You became famous and wealthy off the pain of a woman who never earned $30,000 in a single year of her life. And now, Mr. Chairman, you sit in that chair and lecture me about representing working people. You did not betray the hollows, J.D. Vance. You monetized them. The Democratic side of the dais applauded. Elizabeth Warren, Raphael Warnock, even John Fetterman nodded once. Not in agreement, but in acknowledgement that it had been a real punch. Bernie Sanders, for the first time in 2 hours, finally spoke 4 words. That was well said. The room breathed. The cameras cut to Vance's face. For the first time since question 1, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez looked like she might win. Josh Hawley, on the Republican side, touched his forehead very briefly. Even he, for a moment, looked worried. Vance waited until the applause died. He did not look defensive. He did not look angry. He looked, if anything, slightly relieved, like a man who had been waiting to be asked the exact question she had just asked him. Congresswoman, everything you just said about me is accurate. Let me confirm it on the record. I did write Hillbilly Elegy. I did argue that culture matters alongside economics in explaining the decline of the white working class. I did accept approximately $15 million in campaign support from Peter Thiel during my Senate run in 2021 and 2022. Every single dollar of that support is itemized in my publicly filed Federal Election Commission quarterly reports. Anyone watching this hearing right now can pull those reports up on their phone in about 30 seconds. I did work at Mithril Capital. I did co-found Naria Capital. My net worth is, as of my most recent financial disclosure, $11.4 million. Our Ohio Renewal did spend a significant portion of its operating budget on management consultants. NPR's reporting on that was accurate. The nonprofit did close. I take personal responsibility for that. It is one of the real regrets of my life before politics, and I do not run from it. My grandmother did pass away in 2005, owing a pharmacy in Middletown, Ohio, for her insulin. Every single word you just said is true, Congresswoman. I do not deny any of it. I have never denied any of it, and I am not going to start denying it now under oath, in front of my own colleagues, and my own president, and my own wife, who is watching this hearing right now from the Naval Observatory. I am going to tell you what else is true. He turned a page. Question 23. Congresswoman, the 2021 Met Gala, the event we just finished discussing. Your invitation to that event. Who personally extended that invitation to you? The invitation came through the Metropolitan Museum of Art. That is not what the House Ethics Report found. I am holding the report in my hand right now. Page 17. Quote, Representative Ocasio-Cortez was invited by Anna Wintour, global editorial director of Vogue and chief content officer of Condé Nast, who personally commissioned the designers to, quote, dress AOC, end quote. Is that correct, Congresswoman? Yes. Thank you. Question 24. Miss Anna Wintour has donated personally and through affiliated entities approximately $2.1 million to Democratic Party candidates and committees over the last 10 years. That number is from the Federal Election Commission, not from me. Miss Wintour is one of the single largest Democratic Party bundlers in the United States. Are you aware of that? I do not track Miss Wintour's political donations. You do not have to track them, Congresswoman. The FEC does. The records are public. Any American with a smartphone can see them in 2 minutes. Question 25. A multi-million-dollar Democratic mega-donor personally invited you to a $35,000 a ticket party. She arranged for a designer to provide you with an $18,000 dress, which the designer then reduced in rental price from $1,300 to $300 after conversations with your staff. You accepted free admission for your boyfriend in violation of house rules, and you wore across the back of that dress, in red letters almost a foot tall, the slogan, "Tax the Rich." 30 seconds ago, you accused me of monetizing my grandmother's pain. Congresswoman, whose pain were you monetizing that night? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not answer. Bernie Sanders behind her did not say that was well said this time. Vance paused. He set down his pen. He looked for the first time all morning directly at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face, not at the top of her head, not at his notes. Congresswoman, I want to say something about my grandmother, because you brought her up, and I think that is fair. She was a public figure in a book I wrote, and if you want to bring her up in a hearing, you have that right. Her name was Bonnie Vance. Everybody in the hollows of Breathitt County, Kentucky, called her Mamaw. She kept a loaded vintage 1930s firearm for protection under her pillow because the men in the hollows drank, and the women learned how to protect their children. She once told my mother, and I am quoting her word for word, "This is in the book. I do not care what you have done. You are my daughter, and I love you. Now, get up off the floor." She passed away while I was deployed to Iraq with the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing as a public affairs correspondent. I did not make it home for her funeral. That is something I will carry until the day I die. You said I monetized her pain. Congresswoman, I want to tell you what I did with the advance from Hillbilly Elegy, because I have not talked about this publicly before, and because you have given me the occasion to do so now. The first thing I did was pay off her funeral debt to the funeral home in Middletown, Ohio. I did that in the summer of 2016. The amount was approximately $3,700. I still have the receipt. The second thing I did was pay off the outstanding insulin balance she owed at the pharmacy. The amount was $1,180. I still have that receipt too. The third thing I did, with my wife Usha, who was pregnant with our first child at the time, was set up the Bonnie Vance Appalachian Scholarship. The scholarship pays full tuition at Ohio State University or Yale University for first-generation college students from Appalachian counties in Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Since 2017, the Bonnie Vance Scholarship has sent 42 students to college. Every single one of them is the first person in their family to attend a 4-year university. That is also on the public record. It is in my most recent financial disclosure filings. Any reporter watching this hearing right now can verify every single one of those claims within 15 minutes. You may disagree with my politics, Congresswoman. I respect that. That is what this building is for. But please, please do not ever again, in a United States Senate hearing room with my name on the chairman's nameplate, suggest that I did not love that woman. You did not know her. I did. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lowered her eyes. Josh Hawley, who had not moved in 10 minutes, pressed the palm of his hand against his forehead the way a man does when he is trying not to show what he is feeling on television. 17 questions remaining. Outside the hearing room, in hallway C of Dirksen Senate office building, an AP reporter was typing with both thumbs on her phone. Her message to the desk read, "Biggest Senate moment of my career. Might be the biggest of the decade. Clear A1." In the CNN studio in Manhattan, chief political correspondent John King was standing at the magic wall. A producer was feeding him data in real time. His director cut the live feed to split screen. Dirksen 538 on one half, John King on the other. "I want to say something for our viewers who are joining us," King said, his voice steady. "And I want to say this very carefully, because my job here is facts, not opinions. Everything Vice President Vance has said in this hearing over the last 2 hours is verifiable. Every single document, every single number, every single name. House Ethics Report 119 to 219 is on the House Ethics Committee website. The FEC complaint regarding Brand New Congress LLC and Brand New Campaign LLC is on the FEC website. The Bureau of Labor Statistics employment data for New York's 14th District is on BLS.gov. The NYPD public safety statistics for the 110th Precinct are on the NYPD website. The New York Post article about district office hours was published on May 10, 2025. The Governor Cuomo quote about Amazon is from a WAMC radio interview in February 2019. "I want to be very clear with our viewers. We have fact-checked in real time at the CNN data desk. Every single one of those facts is accurate." Back in the studio, Jake Tapper took the handoff. "Thank you, John. Yes, that is. This is a remarkable hearing. I think we need to stay with this." The split screen cut back to Dirksen 538. Question 31. "Congresswoman, since you took office in January 2019, major offenses in New York's 14th Congressional District have increased by approximately 70%. The citywide average over the same period is 30%. Your district is running at more than double the rate of New York City as a whole. Source: New York Police Department Public Safety Statistics, analyzed and published in the New York Post, May 10, 2025. Is that number correct? Public safety statistics are complicated. Yes or no, Congresswoman? I cannot dispute the number. Question 32. In the 110th Precinct, which sits inside your congressional district, major offenses have increased by approximately 105% over the same period. Correct? Correct. Question 33. In the 115th Precinct, the increase is approximately 85%. Correct? Correct. Question 34. In May of this year, your Hunts Point District Office was operating on the following schedule closed for lunch between 12 p.m. and 1:00 p.m. Closed all day on Fridays. Total public hours, approximately 26 per week. Your Astoria District Office was open by appointment only on Thursdays. Total public hours, approximately 6 per week. Combined, your two district offices in one of the most densely populated congressional districts in the United States were publicly accessible approximately 32 hours per week. Source: New York Post reporting, May 10, 2025, with direct quotes from frustrated constituents. Is that reporting accurate, Congresswoman? Our office hours have since been updated. When? Last week. After my office announced I would be chairing this hearing, or before? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not answer. Question 35. Question 36. Question 37. Vance moved through them the way a Marine clears a building, methodically, without wasted motion, without celebration, without stopping. Every question ended with a yes or no demand. Every answer was yes, or it was silence. Question 38 was about her member representational allowance. Question 39 was about the dance company expenses that Americans for Public Trust had flagged to the Office of Congressional Ethics earlier in the year. Question 40 was about her. Fight the Oligarchy tour schedule. Specifically, how many Tuesdays she had been in Phoenix, Albuquerque, and Las Vegas, while her Hunts Point office had been closed for lunch between 12 and 1. By the time he reached question 40, she had stopped giving verbal answers. She was nodding yes, or shaking her head no. The C-SPAN microphones could not pick up her responses. The broadcast had become a visual record of a woman gradually disappearing behind her own binder. Question 41. Congresswoman, you opened your testimony this morning under oath by accusing the Republican Party of, quote, staging a systemic devastation of the working class. Those were your exact words. Do you recall them? Mr. Chairman, yes or no? Do you recall the words, staging a systemic devastation of the working class? I spoke rhetorically, under oath, about a total devastation against the working class by my party. Vance set down his pen. Congresswoman, in this room today are 3 United States senators who grew up in working-class families. I want to name them for the record. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, whose father was a small-town banker in a community of 600 people. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, whose family ran a cattle farm in Yell County. And Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, whose mother worked 6-hour days as a nursing assistant in North Charleston to raise him and his brother alone. You just accused all 3 of those men, under oath, of participating in a systemic eradication against the very class they came from. I want to give each of them a chance to respond. I am going to start with Senator Scott. Senator, if the chair may yield, would you like 30 seconds? Senator Tim Scott, the first African-American senator from the state of South Carolina since Reconstruction, leaned slowly into his microphone. He did not shuffle papers. He did not clear his throat. He did not make a joke. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, my mother's name is Frances Scott. She is 81 years old. She is watching this hearing from her living room in North Charleston right now. She raised me and my brother alone after my father left. She worked as a nursing assistant for 41 years. She gave sponge baths to dying men for a living. Congresswoman, for 41 years. She voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. She voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. She voted for Joe Biden in 2020. She did not vote for me in 2022. She voted for my opponent. She did that because she wanted me to earn it. That is the kind of woman my mother is. You just accused me on national television, under oath, of participating in a total devastation against the class she comes from. I am not going to ask you to apologize to me. I do not care about an apology to me. I am a grown man, and I can take an insult. I am going to ask you to apologize to her by name. Her name is Frances Scott. She is 81 years old. She is in a housecoat right now in North Charleston, and she raised her boy, this boy, better than to call other working-class families sons ruthless destroyers. Apologize to my mother, Congresswoman, right now on national television. Use her name. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that only happens in rooms where history is being made. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stared at the table in front of her. She did not apologize. She stood up. Mr. Chairman, I am requesting a recess. Vance looked at her for a long moment. Congresswoman, under Senate Rule 26, a witness who has been duly sworn may not unilaterally recess a hearing. You may request the chair's permission. Then I am requesting the chair's permission, Mr. Chairman. J.D. Vance looked at her for 2 more seconds. His face was unreadable. Granted. We will resume in 15 minutes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gathered her papers. Her hands were shaking so badly that 3 sheets of them fluttered to the floor. A staffer bent to pick them up. AOC did not wait. She turned, looking for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was already standing up. He was already walking out of the hearing room. He did not look back. The C-SPAN cameras caught every step of him leaving. They caught the moment he pushed through the double doors at the back of Dirksen 538. They caught the moment the doors closed behind him. They caught the moment Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had turned to find him, realized he was entirely gone. 7 questions remaining. 15 minutes later, Vice President Vance gavelled the hearing back into session. The witness chair was empty. Her water glass had been removed. Her binder was gone. Her nameplate, the small wooden placard that had read in gold letters, "The Honorable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, U.S. Representative of New York," had been quietly taken away by a staffer during the break. Her microphone had been turned off. Vance looked at the empty chair for 4 seconds. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply turned to the committee clerk, seated to his right. "Madame Clerk, Eastern Time, on live national television, under oath, the witness for the Democratic minority of this committee, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York's 14th Congressional District, requested a recess from this hearing and has not returned. Let the record further reflect that at this time, the chair is submitting into the official hearing record the following documents." Vance held up a manila folder. For the first time in nearly 4 hours, he held up a physical document. 1. House Committee on Ethics Report, 119 to 219, dated July 25, 2025, regarding Representative Ocasio-Cortez's acceptance of impermissible gifts at the 2021 Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute Gala. 26 pages. Bipartisan. Signed by both parties. 2. The Federal Election Commission case file regarding Brand New Congress LLC, Brand New Campaign LLC, Brand New Congress PAC, and Justice Democrats PAC, originally filed by the National Legal and Policy Center on March 4, 2019, case file open as of today, S-date. 3. Bureau of Labor Statistics, employment data for New York SP's 14th Congressional District, covering January 2019 to the most recent quarterly report, net private sector job creation, negative 4,200. 4. New York Police Department major public safety statistics for the 110th, 115th, and adjacent precincts within the 14th Congressional District, covering January 2019 to the present. 5. The New York Post article of May 10, 2025, documenting the operating hours of the Congresswoman's district offices, including direct quotes from frustrated constituents whose names are on the public record. 6. The complete Federal Election Commission filings of Peter Thiel's donations to my Senate campaign, 2021 and 2022. Every single document I have just submitted into the record is publicly available. Any citizen of the United States of America can access all of these documents, all of them, from their phone in less than 5 minutes. Nothing in this hearing was classified. Nothing in this hearing was secret. Nothing in this hearing was a baseless claim. The Congresswoman did not dispute the accuracy of a single one of these documents while she was under oath in this chair. I have no further questions. He paused. This hearing is adjourned. He tapped the gavel once. The sound of that single tap echoed off the marble walls of Dirksen 538 and went out through the microphones, through the C-SPAN satellites, through the CNN fiber lines, through the Fox News broadcast towers, into approximately 82 million American living rooms. Josh Hawley did not applaud. Tim Scott did not applaud. Tom Cotton did not applaud. None of them needed to. John Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, stood up, nodded once in J.D. Vance's direction, and walked out of the hearing room on his own. In a hallway outside Dirksen 538, Senator Bernie Sanders stood alone for 90 seconds before his chief of staff caught up with him. A reporter from Politico caught him first. She had been a political reporter in Washington for 11 years. She had covered Bernie Sanders in 2 presidential campaigns. She had never seen him look the way he looked right now. She asked him one question. "Senator Sanders, did Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez do anything wrong in there?" Bernie Sanders, who had spent 40 years perfecting the art of the sharp one-liner, who had built an entire political career on giving reporters answers they could, quote, gave the only answer he could give. No comment. He walked to the elevator. He pressed the button. The doors opened. He stepped in. He did not take questions for the remainder of the day. He did not issue a statement. His staff told reporters he had a scheduling conflict. He did not. He went home. In a small office on the 3rd floor of the Russell Senate Office Building, Senator Tim Scott closed his door behind him and called his mother. Frances Scott was 81 years old, and she was sitting in her living room in North Charleston, South Carolina, in a blue housecoat that her son had sent her for Mother's Day 3 years ago. She had just finished watching her son speak on live television in the United States Senate. She had not moved from her recliner. She picked up on the second ring. "Timmy, Mama, did you see it?" "Baby, I saw every minute of it. Every minute. From the first question to the last. What did you think, Mama?" Frances Scott took a long breath. Tim Scott could hear it across the phone line. He could also hear, very faintly, the hum of her refrigerator in the background. It was the same refrigerator she had owned when he was 12 years old. "Baby, you did good. You did real good. I want you to tell Mr. Vance I said thank you. I mean that. You tell him. You tell him that an old black lady from North Charleston, who has voted for Democrats her whole life, said thank you to the Republican Vice President of the United States today. You tell him." "I will, Mama." "And Timmy?" "Yes, ma'am. That young woman, the Congresswoman. I feel sorry for her, I do. She is somebody's daughter, too." "Yes, ma'am. But Timmy, that does not mean she was right. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Mama, I hear you." Senator Tim Scott, who had been in politics for 24 years and who had seen almost everything politics could do to a person, sat at his desk with the phone still in his hand and cried for 90 seconds. Then he washed his face in the small bathroom next to his office. Then he went to the Senate floor for the 3-4-5 vote. J.D. Vance stayed in Dirksen room 538 for 6 minutes after everyone else had left. The C-SPAN cameras had been switched off. The reporters had filed out to the hallway. His Secret Service detail was waiting outside the main doors. His chief of staff was waiting with a folder of items for him to sign. Vance walked slowly from the chairman's dais down to the witness table. He did not touch the chair where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had been sitting. He simply looked at it for a long moment. He had not come to this hearing to destroy a young congresswoman from the Bronx. He had come to this hearing because in the summer of 1994, on a wooden porch in Jackson, Kentucky, his grandmother Bonnie Vance had sat him down, handed him a glass of sweet tea, and told him something he had never forgotten. "Jimmy, you listen to me, boy. If you ever get a chance in this life to speak for people who don't have a microphone, you take it. You take it every single time. You don't think about it. You just do it. Do you hear me?" He had heard her. He took the underground tram from Dirksen Senate Office Building to the Capitol. He walked into the vice presidential office off the Senate floor. He presided over the 3-4-5 vote as if nothing unusual had happened that afternoon. He was, after all, a Marine. Marines finish what they start. By 5:00 p.m. Eastern Time, the clip of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez standing up and requesting a recess had been viewed 41 million times on X. By 7:00 p.m., the hashtag number Bernie walked out was the #1 trending topic on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, simultaneously, a convergence that social media analysts said had not happened on a political story since the night of November 3, 2020. By 9:00 p.m., 3 Democratic members of the House of Representatives, all of them representing swing districts, had issued statements carefully distancing themselves from Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's testimony. None of them named her directly. They did not need to. Their constituents knew who they meant. By 1:00 p.m., Senator John Fetterman had tweeted a single sentence. "I said what I said." By 1:00 p.m., John King on CNN was reading the House Ethics Report aloud in full, on prime time, page by page, with the data desk fact-checking every sentence on the lower third of the screen. By midnight, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had not tweeted. Not one word. For anyone who had followed her career closely over the last 7 years, that silence was the loudest sound of the entire day. At 1:47 a.m. Eastern Time, exactly 12 hours after she had yielded her time to the Vice President of the United States, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's office quietly updated the hours on the website of her Hunts Point district office. The new hours read Monday through Friday, 9:00 a.m. to 6:00 p.m. No appointment required. Nobody in her office made an announcement about it. There was no press release. There was no tweet, but the door was unlocked. Somewhere in a 2-story house in Middletown, Ohio, an 8-1-year-old man named Earl Caldwell, a retired Armco steelworker who had known Bonnie Vance for 41 years, who had sat on her front porch and eaten her biscuits and listened to her cuss out her daughter's boyfriends, drove to the small cemetery off Route 4 and parked his pickup truck. He walked slowly between the headstones. The October air was cold. His breath was visible. He stopped at a modest granite stone that read Bonnie Vance, beloved mother and grandmother, 1933 to 2005. Earl unfolded a metal camp chair he had brought from the bed of his truck. He sat down next to the stone. He took off his John Deere cap. "Bonnie," he said out loud, "your boy did real good today. Real good. I watched the whole thing. Couldn't stop watching. He talked about you on national television. He said your name. He talked about the insulin. He talked about the firearm under your pillow. He talked about you telling his mama to get up off the floor." Earl's voice broke a little. "He's the Vice President of the United States, Bonnie. The Vice President. Your boy from Middletown. I just wanted you to know." A cardinal landed on the top of Bonnie Vance's headstone. It sat there for about 4 seconds. Earl did not believe in signs. He had never believed in signs. He watched the cardinal anyway. "If you made it this far, thank you. What you just watched, what millions of Americans just watched, is what happens when a Marine from a Kentucky hollow walks into a United States Senate hearing room with nothing but a legal pad, the names of real people, and the facts on the public record. He did not bring a single classified document. He did not bring a single audio recording. He did not reveal a single secret. Every document he cited is available to any citizen of this country on a phone in 5 minutes or less. He just asked 47 questions, 40 of them under oath. If you believe that every member of Congress in this country should have to answer the way Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was made to answer today, hit that like button right now. Right now, before you do anything else, subscribe to this channel. Because next week, we are walking into another hearing room. And the week after that, another one. And the week after that, another one, until every single representative in the United States of America who has ever lied to working families about who they really are has to answer for it under oath on C-SPAN. With the cameras rolling, comment one word below the name of the politician you want to see held accountable next. I read every single comment on every single video. The top name wins next week's story. Turn on your notifications, because when working-class America finally gets a microphone in Washington, you do not want to miss a minute. God bless Francis Scott in North Charleston. God bless Bonnie Vance in Jackson, Kentucky. God bless every voter in every forgotten district in this country who has ever left a voicemail that nobody returned. The hearing is adjourned, but the reckoning, the real reckoning, just started. When the cameras are finally turned off and the political theater ends, who is truly standing up for the forgotten voices of the working class?